Speaksies.
This is the True Podcast.
True Podcast.
About a few acquaintances
Forced to stay at home and have their feelings recorded.
find out what happens when people stop going out.
And start getting real.
About toilet paper.
We're your hosts, Scott and Erin.
This is Panic at the Costco.
Okay, so welcome to Panic at the Costco.
Part two.
That was a little panic right there.
Good Lord. You know what it is? I jinxed us because at the beginning of this, and we're recording and we're rolling because
Let's do it.
I said it's the last episode had a screaming baby, but now we have podcast professionals who've been doing this and we're gonna have no issues. And we just spent 40 minutes trying to get I blame Skype though 100%. So let me do a little introduction real quick. And okay, I hope you're purposely on mute, Erin, because we can't hear you. Okay, I'm gonna do a little introduction. So on today's podcast we have Keith Barnes, Jacob Bartley, otherwise known as Bartley and Barnes, podcast, video podcast that comes out. It's coming out every other Thursday, 6 p.m.
Correct. Yes.
Pacific.
Yes.
I got a chance to check it out, your last episode today, and very much enjoyed it. You guys are both also part of Apocaflix Now podcast. Is that right?
Yes, we are. We actually started on that. It's an all movie podcast, and we every Friday at 7:30 p.m.
Great. And I've checked those out. They're very well done. I would recommend anyone to check them out. We'll put up links on our website, speaksies.com/panic. So tonight we're going to talk movies. So the last couple episodes we've had, meditations and breathing. We've had screaming babies. We've kind of gotten a little deep and stressful. Tonight it's going to be a little bit lighter. And of course, we were just discussing Breaking Bad before we started recording, and that's not light. But we're going to talk movies, and we're going to do our review of Capone. And I think some of you guys have watched Scoob as well. Is that right? I
watched Scoob, yes.
I've seen some of it.
Okay, so
I've heard of it.
Not to spoil too much about the Capone review, but let's just say I was thinking about Scoob a lot over the last couple of days and wondering what that movie was like.
Hey, it's funny. If you would have told me that Scoob was 100 times better than Capone, I would have thought you were crazy. But it is the case. And I want to apologize beforehand for suggesting Capone because it is not a pleasant watch. I will say that.
I wouldn't recommend it before you eat or drink or do anything that involves putting something in your mouth.
That's a good point.
Yeah, or
open your eyes.
One might call it quite the shit show, if you will. But
I
also,
would say,
Keith Barnes is a guy I've known since I was a kid. Haven't seen him in ages, so I've been kind of seeing that you've been doing the podcasting thing. I thought it'd be a cool thing for us to do this. So thank you guys both for being on. And I guess before we get into our reviews and to movie recommendations, I'm very curious about how you guys met and sort of how y'all hooked up with Apocaflix and then also Bartley and Barnes, how that got started.
Well,
yeah, I can start off because Apocaflix, I started Apocaflix with two other buddies, Gio Ramos and Jake Berlin. They're regulars on Apocaflix now, and it was just us three doing a movie YouTube channel. And then we actually met Keith at a comedy show in Sacramento, and one of the comedians who was featured, or I think he was the opener, I believe, he's like a movie critic as well, Mark Ellis. So we're at a comedy show, and I see Keith. He's wearing a shirt for Mark Ellis, and I'm like, wait a minute, this guy is like actually here for him because there was a much more famous comedian there, and that who for the show was for.
Quick, Jake, really quick. Scott, Mark Ellis is from Williamsburg. He went to Walsingham.
Oh no way!
crazy
Shout out
thing. Yeah.
Metro Conference.
Yeah, he played basketball and everything. I was talking to him about it. So
That's crazy. Okay.
Yeah, so after the show we go to talk to Mark Ellis, and then Keith and I start talking, and Gio joins the conversation, and then we decided to exchange information, and it took a couple months, but we eventually started hanging out and watching movies together, and he started coming on the podcast for Apocaflix Now, and it was instant friendship because we could just talk about movies nonstop or other stuff, sports as well. And it was just very natural. Like you didn't have to force it to be friends, basically. So it was very fluid, and it worked out. And then, movies is our core, our core interest and the core of all of our friendships. But Keith and I particularly just found we had both similar tastes and different tastes, and we wanted to spin off and do our own show, Bartley and Barnes. So that's kind of how it all came together.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
It's very rare as an adult to meet somebody and like click that way. Well, Erin and I kind of the same way. I mean, we sort of just kind of clicked as adults, and I don't know, I haven't done that very many times, where you have similar interests and you can have a conversation and everything else. So that's very cool. What were you going to say, Erin, something really good about me?
Yeah, of course I was. No, well, at first I was going to say that Bartley and Barnes have a really nice ring to it. It feels like either it could be also maybe like a law firm or
I know,
some kind of like detective agency back in like the a 50s television show.
Right.
But I really like it, and yes, Scott, I feel like sometimes when you click over one thing, it could be one movie or one song or whatever, it's pretty cool, and then it just kind of spirals from there. So I love that story. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. If you find somebody that's like, oh, you like that comedian? Like you're not here, that's that or that that band or that song, you're like, okay, we're gonna have a lot in common. So before we also get into movies, I will say I watched your most recent episode, and you guys were talking about The Last Dance. And
yes.
Now, Erin, I don't know if have you seen The Last Dance? Or I'm not gonna be sexist and assume that you haven't watched it.
This is The Last Dance is a Star Wars.
It's okay. No, based on the guys that you're looking at right now, that's a great assumption.
I was gonna say that's
It
not a
is,
bad
yeah.
guess.
That
Right.
should have been the name of the last movie.
It sounds like a Western.
It's
It sounds like an 80s kind of like rom-com with like, but it's not. What is it? Tell me, enlighten me, please.
Actually, I think this would actually be a really good exercise. What movie is The Last Dance? I feel like it's a 90s movie with like some hip hop mixed in.
A cheerleader movie, or
there's
something.
From the Suburbs cheerleader, and then there's like the real angsty, cheerleader. Anyway, never mind. I'm getting too into this, but The Last Dance is a documentary about the Chicago Bulls and their 6 championships, and surely you've at least seen the memes.
Yes,
but
I have heard of it. Yes. Okay. I know what you're talking about. I do know what you're talking about.
Okay. I was going to say, Keith, I agree with the statement that you made about, so you have a son that's about to turn 16. Do you have other kids as well? How many kids do you have?
4. My son's the oldest, and I have 3 daughters.
Okay.
They're all here.
And they're all lovely. By the way.
They are. They're wonderful. So my son is going to be 16. My 2 little daughters are going to be, they're 14 and 13, and then my youngest is 7.
Wow. Well, congratulations on that. Did your son only watch the documentary with you, or did you make your daughters watch as well?
No, they didn't care. It was just my son. Well, it was great. I love talking to him about that, because we were his age when all this was happening.
And that was the thing, that it's like, I don't know that I know that he definitely thoroughly enjoyed watching it, and I think understands how cool that team was, but it was different being there for that and seeing it as it was happening.
Yeah.
I've kind of gone in and out. I'm kind of starting to get back into the NBA a little bit. Well, I was until
Yeah.
everything got canceled. But anyway, but Aaron, I highly suggest checking it out. It's
Sure.
even if you're not an NBA fan, just from a
No, I remember this was like the Bulls. This was like 90. Tell me if I'm wrong. Like 95, 96 Bulls. Was that okay? Like
the last one was
Rock,
the 98. The last championship was 98, but they also, were playing in 96, 97, 98.
Right.
Mhm.
So, right. So I remember watching that. I remember going to my friend's house to watch those games. I remember, I'm not an NBA fan, but I mean, I feel like those Chicago Bulls just kind of swept the nation at that time. And now that you're saying The Last Dance, it does all come back to me.
Yeah.
I remember. So it's funny because my husband, their company, works for a very large company out of Chicago, and they just had a webinar with Tony Kukoc for whatever reason it was.
Oh, wow.
I don't even know why,
Wow.
but he told me, I was like, oh gosh, yeah, I remember that from the, I didn't even associate it with the documentary. Maybe there's some kind of relation, but pretty cool. I can't even imagine being in Chicago at that time and what that was like, but
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that you think about, we don't have to talk about The Last Dance that much. I just want to talk about it a little bit, but the fact that like it swept the world out of Chicago. This team, the Bulls, who wasn't even, they sucked. It'd be like who's like a really bad team right now. I don't know.
The Kings.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Our Sacramento Kings.
And then you draft like one guy, and then all of a sudden you've got the greatest dynasty of all time. But by the way, I'm a big Boogie Cousins fan from UK. I know you are probably as well as a Kings.
Am I, yeah.
You guys,
I'm rooting for him, man. I was so upset he got injured again. Terrible.
Yeah. I always try to follow my UK. I'm a Kentucky basketball fan, so I try to follow those guys instead of really having a team. Okay, so let's move along. But I would just also agree, though, it's a good bonding thing to watch with your kids if you have them. Otherwise, just enjoy the show. But so one of the things that you guys do on your podcast, and we were hoping that you would do with us, is give some recommendations on some of the different streaming apps, especially since right now you can't go out to the theaters, at least out here. I don't think anywhere you can. Is there anything that has either come out recently or just kind of go to that you guys will recommend? Jacob, I'll start with you. Anything that you can recommend?
So if you want to, there's not a lot of new movies coming out. And that's why I was like, let's watch Capone. And I'll say I never watched it. I didn't know. I never even seen the trailer. I just was like, hey, it's a new movie. And I was like, I doubt 4 adults want to talk about Scoob. So I suggested that one. And I'm not going to recommend spending $9.99 on that. I want my money back.
Should we just talk about the elephant in the room? And let's just talk about Capone.
We already started.
Yeah,
Look,
we should do that.
I just want to say, first of all, the reason why I was interested in the movie is because
he's so apologetic.
Look, because I like the director. His name is Josh Trank.
Right.
And he directed a movie called Chronicle.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys remember that movie, but that movie is amazing.
Great.
It is one of the best just low budget found footage movies. That's a superhero movie. It's crazy. Wow. And so he directed that. And then he directed Fantastic Four, the most recent one, which is a whole mess. Like he got taken off of the movie. Both his fault and the studio's fault. And then they finished the movie on their own without him, and it was a mess. So I was rooting for him.
It was not fantastic.
Comeback. Yeah, it wasn't. With Capone, and it's Tom Hardy, like one of the biggest movie stars in the world right now. And look, they should have totally made the Capone movie like the prime Capone when he's young, doing his thing. That's the movie they should have made, because I think what he was going for with Capone is some type of deep dive into his mind and what he was going through mentally at that time. And it just did not come off well. And it honestly, I finished the whole thing, and it was hard.
Kudos to you for that.
It was very difficult to finish it. And I just when you're giving your opinions about movies, you have to be honest. Like, otherwise your opinion doesn't matter. So it's just bad. It's just bad.
Did you find any redeeming qualities at all in the movie? Because I have a couple things, but we'll get to. But I'm curious about your.
I mentioned the mental stuff, right? So I was curious, and I did like some of the stuff that he was imagining, I guess.
Yeah.
And that scene where he is just shooting up everybody standing in front of his house, like the way the scene was executed was actually done very well.
Yeah.
But it was like a dream sequence type thing. So it's hard for me. It wasn't actually like really going on. So it's hard to say like that it's good, but the way that scene was executed was done very well, I thought.
Yeah. Keith, what did you think of it? Did you even watch it?
I started it. And I fell asleep. And,
how far did you get into it? That's what I'd be honest now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I want to see if you beat Erin.
Less than 30 minutes.
Okay.
Maybe.
I beat you. But not by much.
Yeah.
Not by much.
No, yeah, it's yeah.
You can also judge this movie by like, was it by the second or third time that he was incontinent? Like, he soiled himself. Yeah. Let's see. I got through 2 accidents.
We don't want to spoil this for anybody. We really don't want to spoil this for you.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Those scenes where they show him like do you guys cuss on this show? I don't know if.
Yeah.
He shits himself.
Shits the bed
on camera. Like he's like in a meeting with. He's being interrogated by a detective, and he shits himself, and it just like very prolonged scene, and that is unnecessary.
It felt antagonistic at a certain point. It's like I don't mind a shit the bed scene. Like there have been other movies that had, but it just felt almost antagonistic with this movie, like daring us to keep watching. It was such an unpleasant experience. It's I mean, Quentin Tarantino is gratuitous, but he's great. Like you need to care about this for some reason. Like I don't know about you guys. I was like disappointed at first because I'm literally the first frame or whatever when it's like this is the last year of his life. I'm like there better be some freaking flashbacks because I want to see a mob movie. I don't want to see. So real quick, I'll give my 2 little positives because I think we all kind of agree on it was a beautifully shot movie, right? Like it looked really good.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
The cinematography was really done well.
And I felt like it was almost wasted, right? Because it's like this is so beautiful, but like I want to turn it off. It had a great cast that was somewhat wasted in my opinion as well. I mean, Kyle MacLachlan, Matt Dillon. You're like.
Linda Cardellini. I felt so bad for her as an actress because it kind of seemed like she's like, what the hell am I doing?
But she's really good at doing that, like sad, disappointed face.
Yeah.
If there's any actress that can just automatically get into that, I mean, all she had to do was just really sit there with that face for a while.
It's like how the wife was feeling. And how the wife is supposed to be feeling is how she actually was feeling.
She probably wasn't even acting.
She deserves recognition for that for sure. The only quick other thing I'll say is it definitely doesn't glorify crime, right? Like that's the only other thing I could say is like I don't know if there was supposed to be a message, but I mean you definitely don't watch this going, oh, Al Capone's really cool. Like I don't know if you guys watched Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't watch that.
Oh my god!
I need to watch that. Yeah. I heard it's great.
All right, homework assignment. It's great. It's great. And I don't remember the actor that plays Al Capone. He's in. I don't know if you guys saw The Irishman, but he's also in The Irishman.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. I think he plays out. I might be getting that wrong.
I know you're talking about it. It's the actor that Pacino was fighting with in the prison.
Yes.
The Irishman. Yeah, I know. Okay.
Yes, he's fantastic. And I think I might be getting my mobster wrong. Either way, bottom line is. It just wasn't. You didn't watch this movie going, "Wow, I want to be a gangster." But I don't know. Movies, you should kind of want to be a gangster at the end of it. I mean, not really, but it was
some of the best mob movies. They do glorify it in some way, which is good and bad. But hopefully, people are smart enough not to watch one and be like, "All right, I'm gonna go pick up a gun and get involved in this kind of stuff." So, but
cautionary tale.
the thing is, I was talking about that shooting scene. Like that felt like a mob movie during that scene, and I was kind of like zoning in and out of it, like not paying attention, looking back up at the TV. And when that scene came on, I was like, wait a minute, is this really happening? Like, and I was like, there's no way this happened in real life because it's supposed to be a true story. So I was like, this can't be real.
I feel like you could not have made this movie in like the 70s where the mobster was still a major, cultural phenomenon. And like, I feel like there were a lot of them were still alive, and the mob was was still kind of strong, and they may have killed you for making this movie about your incontinence and showing the gangster in such a decrepit way. And but I feel like we're now far enough removed where we can tell this story now and get to that level of detail. I'm not saying that I enjoyed that level of detail. I really like mob movies. I for a lot of different reasons, but I was so okay. Have you guys ever heard of Andrew Moran? And I don't even know if I'm saying his last name right, but he is a journalist, and he is an author of he's like Antisocial Online Extremists and the Hijacking of American Conversation. And he's been on Dak Shepard's podcast, a few others. He has spent like years investigating internet trolls, and this is getting out a little bit of a tangent, but I'm going to get to a point here. He interviewed or studied and followed the man who was single-handedly responsible for spreading those rumors about Hillary Clinton during the election. So the ones where like she was sick, so like and the bad, like Hillary's sick, Hillary's coughing, Hillary's sneezing, and so he said more than anything, people respond like viscerally and emotionally. Like people are most disgusted by others' sickness and disease, people who are sickness and disease. And that's what makes people like click. And that's what spread this whole thing around. Like they were disgusted by her being ill. So anyway, like that's extreme and crazy, but that's what I thought about when I shut this thing halfway down, because I couldn't look at his melted, like bloating body anymore. And that body, the body was like the star of the show. Like you were talking about the Irishman. Well, that character's obviously like frail, and he's kind of cute. I mean, I'm sorry, he's kind of cute. And you acknowledge like he had this like past, really like fucked up life, but you also kind of like feel sorry for that decay and his body giving up on him and everything. But in this situation, there's really no empathy. You're just like waiting for the fluids to like spew out of him at any moment. And right now, at this time during COVID, I just cannot see
it was gross.
Sickness. Yeah. And I just need to put on House Hunters and be done with that.
Yeah, it was unnecessarily like gross. And maybe he really did look like that, but they didn't have to make it so unpleasant to look at, basically.
He was riddled with syphilis. Like those were his scars from
even syphilis. It was like it's like a real Howard Hughes like vibe. It was like the Aviator, where he was just falling apart by the end, and he's like peeing in jars and all that stuff. But even that wasn't as bad, nowhere near as bad as this.
Well, you can make it compelling if you have to have a story, though. I don't know what the story
of this movie is.
Yeah, I watched almost the whole movie.
Right. It would be like if the Aviator was just about that, like just
I mean, there was a moment, and I don't know if Keith or Erin got to this point, but like Jacob may remember the point where I guess is when Matt Dillon's there, and he goes, I hid $10 million, and I'm like, holy shit, we're gonna have a story here. They're gonna have to find this $10 million, and then that's just sort of like never really. It doesn't become.
It keeps being mentioned, but they just like, the $10 million was never found, and that's what happened in real life. So I guess that's all they could do. But that was supposed to be the storyline, and it didn't really. Like, if somebody asked me what's the plot of Capone, I don't know.
Right, exactly.
I don't have an answer for that.
Diapers. I mean, but I wonder, it's possible if you get like, Erin, you made a really interesting point, which was this is not a movie maybe that you could have made back in, at the time that this actually occurred. Maybe in 20 years from now, this will be looked back at as some sort of like groundbreaking thing. Like, I want to believe that like somehow there was something here because I like everybody involved. What's the director's name again?
Josh Trank.
Yeah, so I loved Chronicle as well. I remember when that came out and it had some buzz and it was a really fun, cool movie. And then I'm like, what happened to that guy? And I guess you just gave us the scoop. Kind of reminds me of, remember Richard Kelly, the guy that did Donnie Darko?
He's a Richmond, isn't he? A Richmond native?
Yeah, he's from like Midlothian or something. And
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. And actually, I used to work with like somebody that went to high school with him. But Donnie Darko is amazing. And then it's sort of like you have all this goodwill. And I'm sure there are other directors where this has happened, where you have like this debut movie that's, and I don't know if that
one movie just can change their whole life. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So what's kind of interesting too, and this isn't really on the director topic, but like when I was talking about this with my husband, he was like kind of coming to its defense and was like, how could you possibly do that? But he was saying,
that's why we don't have him on the podcast.
Exactly. I don't care what he says to you and how much he begs, he's not getting on here. No. He was saying again, like the idea of being too realistic, but like he's like, you know what, maybe you are, meaning me and the audience, is, there's some ageism going on here. Like, obviously that he's 48, which you cannot even believe that Capone is 48.
I was going to say.
He's in his 80s.
Oh, yeah.
But we as a society, like, don't want to have to deal with this part of getting older, right? Like, we like back then, there weren't all these homes that you could put the elderly in, right? We had to like take care of our elderly and all of the like literal shit that came with it. And it was scary. And like, he believed that, internally we're facing this death and sickness, and it's like scaring. It's scary. And it was provocative in that way, that we have to like kind of face our own fears of getting older. That was his theory, which I thought was kind of interesting, like another kind of take on it. He also thought it was still disgusting, but it was just, and I guess that's kind of true. Like, you just had to watch him decay in front of your face, and it wasn't pleasant. It's not pleasant, and it's not pleasant in real life either. But
that's a good point, because that's the part of why it's so uncomfortable to watch.
Yes, uncomfortable. Exactly.
Accepting your own mortality.
Yeah, but I mean, but if you were to compare it to, again, going back to the Irishman, it's like they're getting old. I guess if it was Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro, and it was De Niro sitting around the old folks' home the whole time, crapping himself and like seeing visions of stuff. I mean, I don't know. I would like to think it would even be more. There'd be some story there, but anyway. Well, I will say this: it's definitely given us something to talk about, because I couldn't wait to just, no pun intended, shit on this movie.
I'm glad we're all on the same page, because I was like, oh no. When like the first 10 minutes, I was like, oh no, why did I choose this one?
Well, well, Jacob, first of all, I wanna kind of, to be fair to you, you said the latest two movies are Capone and Scoob.
Yeah.
And we're like, Capone?
No-brainer.
Exactly.
Tom Hardy, Capone? Like, anyone in their right mind is like, yes, let's watch this movie. But I tell you, man, I kept thinking, I bet Scoob was so much better.
And I did watch Scoob.
So let's transition. Any other how is Scoob? Let's talk Scoob.
Oh, look, Scoob is not a great movie. I'll tell you that. But it is way better than Capone. And
can you believe it?
It actually makes me appreciate Scoob more, I guess. And look, I like to watch like every movie that comes out if I can. So Keith asked me, why'd you watch that? And I said, well, I didn't really have an answer. I was just like, just cuz. And look, it was $20 to rent, but I look at things like, look, we're all in quarantine right now. It might be over soon. We'll see. But we can't go to the movie theaters right now. So before, you would have went to the movie theaters, maybe taken 2 of your kids or whatever the case is, bought snacks. You would have spent like $50-$60 to go watch Scoob. So spending $20 on it is not that bad. It's not that bad. So I was with my girlfriend, and we rented it, and we watched it and just had some dinner and watched it, and it was fun. Like, I'm not a diehard Scooby-Doo fan or anything, but I do love the original the live action one that they made. I think it came out in like 99 or something.
With Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze.
Wait, I was going to say, what's her name? Linda Cardellini.
Oh, Linda Cardellini's in it. There we go. Dying back in. She plays Velma.
Yeah.
I was going to say that Velma was quite fetching.
Yeah.
Yes. Very attractive Velma, by the way.
Yes.
But yeah, so Scoob was fun. It wasn't great. It was fun. It did a weird thing. So it has Scooby-Doo. They're saying he's like a descendant of, I forget who they said, like some old pharaoh's dog. Like, did they say Alexander the Great? Or I don't.
Anubis?
Somebody's dog.
I just saw bits and pieces. So I saw the robot part. I heard a lot of 60s and 90s references, which made my ears perk up. But if you like those, you'll love Scoob.
Yeah. So if you have, I believe if you have some I think young kids will enjoy this movie a lot.
Yeah.
I really do. But the problem is there's so many other options that you don't have to pay an extra $20 for that it's not necessarily worth it. But I did like the movie. And this movie, there's a few adult jokes in this movie that I was like, whoa. I don't know if I'd be okay with that if I had a 5-year-old kid. So the main villain, I forget his last name, but the main villain, his first name is Dick. And so
many ways you can go with
that. Yes, his first name's Dick. And so when Scooby-Doo first meets him, and you know how Scooby-Doo uses a R instead of a D? Mm-hmm. Like when he says something, he says Rick instead of Dick, right? So the villain's like, I'm Dick, blah, blah, blah. And Scooby-Doo's like, Rick. And then the villain's like, no, it's Dick. And they do that for like a minute straight. And he's like, no, my name is Dick. And he's like, Dick, 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 Dick. And I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This is on Scooby-Doo movie. But the thing is, they could get away with it because he's just, it's just his name.
Right.
Like, they can totally get away with that stuff. It's funny to me.
Was it Dick Dastardly or just
Dick Dastardly?
Okay. So you know Dastardly and Muttley from Hanna-Barbera, those old cartoons. Did anyone now? See, I'm going to date us again because I like to do this every episode I can. Did anyone ever watch the Cartoon Express on USA and the Laugh Olympics? Do you remember the Laugh Olympics, like the Rottens versus the Yogis or whatever? That's the Dastardly and Muttley.
Oh yeah,
I think it's the same character.
Yeah.
And Muttley's in it too. Yeah.
Muttley.
So there's a lot of like diehard Hanna-Barbera fans who like love this movie because it has all these little Easter eggs and all this thing. So there's an audience for it. I think you can spend your $20 elsewhere and be happier.
Well, you bring up a good point though, Jacob, about which I hadn't thought about, because trust me, I had a real moment with myself before buying that Capone movie for $10, but I was like, no, this is $10. It's okay. We're going to talk about it on the podcast. But I hadn't thought about it that way, which is, hey, it is a new release. You're going to spend $10 on one ticket, much less everything else of going to a movie theater. And how many movies have you gone to that are kind of end up being a stinker? So let me ask you guys this. Moving on. So actually, Scoob, you've done a good job, because now I kind of want to see Scoob, even though I'm not even that big of a fan of Scooby-Doo.
Wait until it's $5.99 to rent.
I'm not going to drop the 20 on it, but
or it's going to be on HBO Max, actually, by the way.
Well, by the way, which is one of the things in life that you just can't do anything about. But have you guys ever bought a movie, and I'm sure you have, and a week later it's on Prime or it's on Netflix, and you're just like, you have to block it out. I pay, but so moving on from Capone and Scoob, have there been any of the new releases? Have you watched any other ones that you were like, oh, this was worth it? I kind of feel like I could see myself doing this. Or has it been like rewatching movies you love, or just, have how have you guys been doing this? And when you normally do your show, are you going out to the theater usually to review new releases? How has it changed for you? And have there been any that you've loved? So since we've talked about stuff we don't like and then Scoob.
Our format, well, it's since we started doing our weekly show, it's kind of changed. We used to just do, like, we would go watch something and 2 or 3 of us would review it. Like a specific review videos, but now we kind of just talk about them on our weekly show. Whoever's seen, like last year, there was a lot of, there was a stretch where, because like Jacob said, those guys, him, Jake, Brian, they'll go see the stuff night of, or opening night, or the night, the Thursday opening night or the Friday, and I'll be like a week or 2 behind. We had a 3-week stretch or so where you guys were seeing. You guys saw like Knives Out and Ford v Ferrari and everything.
You know what? I think
I'll
I watched
later.
I think I watched y'all's either like best movies of the year show or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And there were a couple that you had not seen, Keith. Or Keith,
Yeah.
maybe it was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm like, how have you not seen? Or
I
it
saw
was
that.
something. Okay, maybe it was Knives Out, because Knives Out was great too.
It might have been
But
1917. I hadn't seen that.
well,
yeah.
I haven't seen that either. But
That was. I feel like that was best seen in a movie theater because of the
Yeah.
cinematography.
Oh, absolutely.
But it was
yeah.
pretty amazing.
If I had seen it at the time, it would have been my number 1 movie probably.
Yeah.
Last year.
wow.
That was pretty great.
What was your number 1 movie? I feel like it was Marvel movie, wasn't it? Oh no.
No. It's Ford v Ferrari.
Okay.
Ford v Ferrari, which I love very much. Yeah. So yeah, that I think Knives Out, and I think maybe oh my gosh, Taika Waititi. What's it, Jacob?
What? Oh my goodness, I can't think of it. The Hitler
the
movie.
Hitler one, yes.
Jojo Rabbit.
Jojo Rabbit.
Jojo
Yes.
Rabbit. Yeah.
That movie is
Jojo Rabbit.
fantastic.
It's
Oh
great.
my goodness.
I highly recommend that.
I need to
But
see that.
yeah, we just kind of just review whatever. Whoever's seen it, will in our notes we'll review.
That's
it and talk
good.
about
It's no pressure. Like, okay, you all got to see every single freaking movie.
Yeah,
that
so
comes
luckily
out.
there's 5 of us on the Apocaflix YouTube channel. So
Somebody's
at least
always seen something.
1 or 2 of us
Yeah.
will see a new release, and that way we have somebody talking about it.
Right.
For as far as Bartley and Barnes goes, we just kind of talk about it at whatever we've seen lately, like whether it's old, new, something we've caught up on, things like that. So the thing is, there hasn't been a lot of new movies that weren't already in theaters to be released on streaming. The only other one I think is Trolls, Trolls World Tour, which I haven't seen.
I've seen
but-
it.
Any thoughts on
course.
that?
I mean, I like the Trolls series.
Yeah.
It's cute. It's the music. It's, like, I feel like it's just happy and fun and good for kids. And my kids are younger, like under 9. So it's perfect for them. I enjoyed it. I have to say, I'll admit it.
What about Troll Hunter? Have you seen that? Because that's a damn good movie.
That's actually.
Yeah. Have you seen Troll Hunter?
I've seen a little bit of that. Yeah.
It's really good. What about Troll 2? Come on now.
All right, Trolls too.
Troll 2 is the best worst movie of all time. So anyway,
But there's actually some great movies that came out like 2 or 3 weeks or a month before the quarantine happened, and then they went to home premiere. So all right, so if you haven't seen or where's this on my list? Okay, so The Gentleman, Guy Ritchie movie. The Gentleman had just came out in theaters about 3 or 4 weeks before the shutdown. Amazing movie. I almost, before I suggested Capone, I was going to say you guys should watch The Gentleman so we could talk about it. And it is just incredible. I don't know if you guys like.
It's got
Guy
McConaughey.
Ritchie. Yep, McConaughey. I don't know if you guys
Okay.
like Guy Ritchie movies like Snatch and what are some other ones? Keith, Rock and Rolla.
Rock and Roll.
And he actually directed Aladdin, the 2019
New
Aladdin,
one,
which
right.
is great.
Did he do Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels?
I think so.
I'm not
Yes.
sure.
I
Okay.
believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he has a very unique style to his movies, unless he's doing something like Aladdin, which still kind of feels like a Guy Ritchie movie. But The Gentleman is so entertaining. Like,
Okay.
I don't know your guys' taste in movies particularly, but like I'd have a hard time not telling you that if you, however much it costs, $4.99 or something to rent, like I'm pretty sure you'll be satisfied with it. It's rated R. Like, I probably wouldn't watch it with your kids, but it is just such an entertaining movie. It has Charlie Hunnam, Matthew McConaughey, Colin Farrell is amazing in it.
Oh, I love Colin Farrell.
I love him too.
Hugh Grant is
really
all of my favorites.
Yes.
what a cast!
So,
Holy cow!
Talk about
The two leads are basically Charlie Hunnam and Hugh Grant, and they're kind of going back and forth telling this story. And the way Guy Ritchie tells stories, it kind of jumps around a lot. Such an entertaining and like we were talking about hidden gems. Like, this is a hidden gem. As far even
I've never heard of it.
Yes, it is.
Well, don't you feel like Guy
highly
Ritchie? I feel like had a string of a couple movies that really bombed. And he sort of lost favor a little bit. I don't remember even what they were, right? But like, didn't he do one with Madonna or something? Like
he married Madonna.
Well, he did.
He married her, yes.
He also made a movie with her, I think.
He cast her in some really bad movie.
He cast her in some movie that bombed. But okay, so The Gentleman, Guy Ritchie, is that something we can get on we can rent it on Prime, you said?
Probably. I typically I either use Amazon Prime for rentals or I use Google Play. So you can if you have a smart TV, you can use any app and you go on there. Make sure you check each one to see where it's the cheapest.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if it shows up on a streaming service for free sometime soon. So we'll see. But I highly recommend that. I also highly recommend, I don't know if people are fans of Jane Austen adaptations, but
oh hell yeah.
Also right before the quarantine was Emma, a new Emma, starring Anya Taylor-Joy as Emma. And if you don't know her, she was from Split, the movie.
Oh yes.
And she was also in Glass, and she's been in quite a few other things. She's like one of the best young actresses working right now, and she plays Emma. Look, I love the Gwyneth Paltrow Emma as well. This one feels like a modern, even though it's still set in the same time period, but it feels like a modern day Emma in a way, and it's actually really good. And again, these are like $5 to rent, so for me, these are worth it. Definitely Emma, and then also the Ben Affleck movie, The Way Back.
I do want to see that. That came out right. I almost went and saw that. Right before, because I was like, this is my kind of movie. Yeah. Redemption for a alcoholic guy with the basketball team, Hoosiers or something for the, So it turned out to be pretty good.
Yeah, it's actually really great. And I was really shocked because every movie I saw up until that point was good to great in 2020. And I was like, this is going to be the best year of movies ever. And that's not going to be the case, obviously. But there were like 5 or 6 movies that were all good to great. And I hadn't seen a bad one yet. And then all the bad ones came recently. So I just, it was pretty crazy. But I do recommend those 3 for rental for sure.
There's a meme there somewhere, like, what I thought movies in 2020 were going to be versus like 2020. We'll have to make one up.
Yeah, like pre-quarantine 2020, like just like amazed, and then post-quarantine 2020 movies.
Some like really, exactly. And I don't know if you guys saw. I just saw the other day that Parasite. So is that on Prime? I believe that's on Prime now.
So it's actually on Hulu for free.
Right after I bought it, by the way. I bought it on Prime. Right before Oscars, and it's on Hulu now. But
that's Hulu, and I can't wait to see that. That's on
my list. You haven't watched it yet?
Oh.
I haven't.
I wrote it down on a list of recommendations. It won Best Picture. It won like all those Oscars. So we actually did a live Oscar party. We streamed it and everything. It was like I don't even know how long it was. It was really long, like 3 or 4 hours. And we were just all like blown away because it kept winning all these Oscars. And we had predicted a bunch of other stuff. And I was the only one who had seen Parasite at that time. And I was just like, it deserves it. It's so great. Like it's you have to use subtitles unless you speak Korean.
As I do, but okay.
Oh,
for anyone else, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for everybody else.
But so I recommend it to my younger brother, right? He's like 3 years younger than me, and he's not a film person. He likes movies, obviously, just like a casual fan. And I told him, I was like, look, watch this movie. It's you have to use the subtitles, but you're not even going to notice them once you start the movie because it's so compelling. And he came back and told me, you were right. 5 minutes in, I didn't even care about the subtitles. I didn't even notice I was reading them because the movies just pulls you into that world.
Right.
And that is like honestly one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sitting here trying to think of another example of a movie like that works on so many levels, and it pulls you in, and it's got, there's a metaphor to it. But what's so funny is it's a metaphor. It's a line. If you guys haven't seen it, there's a line where one of the kids keeps talking about that. It's a metaphor. It's very meta. But what's the director's name?
Bong Joon-ho, I believe.
Bong Joon-ho. Have you guys seen The Host?
I haven't. No.
Okay, I saw that years ago. He did that one, and it's unbelievable. I think that would be a hidden gem. I'm sure you can find it somewhere.
It's actually on Hulu. I was looking through Hulu movies, and it's on there.
Oh, wow.
So just to not to spoil it, but it's very clear it's a monster movie. So yeah, I'm not giving anything away there, but it's pulls you in. It's wonderful. The dialogue's fantastic. Yes, you're going to need to use captions, but if you don't like that, then you're missing out on.
So he also directed Snowpiercer.
Yes.
It was actually I believe it's an American film, but it's in English.
Yeah.
And that movie's great. Stars
Awesome.
Chris Evans.
I was about to say, doesn't
America.
that have? Yeah, Captain America. Okay. Well, I thank you for those recommendations though, because I think too it's we got Emma, The Gentleman, and then The Way Back. All three different types of movies. Is The Way Back streaming yet?
You can rent it. It's
you already can.
Free.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So you can rent it on Amazon or Google Play. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Awesome. And I was listening, to one of your episodes about your guilty pleasure movies, which I feel like, sometimes obviously this is, time of pandemic and, we're like looking at comfort foods. Scott's eating a lot of cheese. We're looking at comfort movies, we've been watching a lot of like 80s coming of age movies in our house and introducing especially our oldest to those. But are there any, like, what are your, and like I said, I know you guys did a podcast about this, which I hope people check out, but would you guys mind sharing what your guilty pleasure movies are? And it doesn't have to be a coming of age, just could be something really out there. Just wondering, and I'd love to hear what everybody's are.
Oh man.
Yeah, well, I talked about that Scooby-Doo movie with the Sarah Michelle Gellar one. That is definitely one of my guilty pleasures because it's not a good movie necessarily, but I just watched it so many times when I was younger. For me, so guilty pleasures can go either way. It's like a movie that's like so ridiculous that it's just you don't take it that seriously, but you really enjoy it. Or it's like a movie that tried to be serious that didn't work, but you still enjoy it for one reason or another. And one of mine was I don't know why I like Pearl Harbor, the Michael Bay one starring Ben Affleck and Josh Hartnett. I don't know why I enjoy it. Like it's not a good movie. I don't necessarily think it is, but there's just something about it. I don't know. Because I think I just like the actors, and I'm a sucker for Ben Affleck. I already mentioned him before for The Way Back, so that's definitely one of them for me. But you mentioned like coming of age movies. This is not a guilty pleasure. I love this movie, but 16 Candles, one of the best comfort movies ever. So like the comedy in that movie it would not happen today. I would say. It is very racist and very sexist and all this stuff, but it was very edgy, and that's kind of what John Hughes movies were. But yeah, if you've never seen like 16 Candles or Pretty in Pink, those are some great ones.
My mom rented from the Blockbuster. We went to the Blockbuster for my 4th grade birthday party, and we got 16 Candles, and my mom had no idea what it was about. We had no clue, and she started watching like the first 5 minutes of that movie, and we had to shut it off.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love the line when she
PG.
like leaves her house and she's like, "They forgot my fucking birthday." Like,
yeah, I love it. I love her so much. Okay, but yes, I agree. That's a good one. How about you, Keith?
Oh man, I mentioned a terrible movie called The Meg, but with Jason
Oh, the
Statham.
shark movie with Jason
Shark
Statham.
movie,
Yeah.
yes. It's not. I say terrible. I'll knock off one of those terribles. It's just terrible. It's not terrible. It's only a little bit terrible. But it's fun though. It's fun if you like him. You know, it's got all the tropes you can think of. Each the cast. You got one. You got the brainy person. It's a very international cast as well. You got a British person. You got a person. I think that was the Asian brainiac person.
Isn't
you got
Dwight Schrute
Dwight?
in that movie?
I was gonna say Dwight.
Rainn Wilson. Yeah.
Rainn Wilson. Yeah, as of course the American rich billionaire, jerk who's doesn't care about the environment and doesn't care about it's all about his corporate bottom line, this, that, whatever. But it's fun though. It's got a well, we're not spoiling, but
It's
got
on
a nice.
HBO.
It's on HBO. Yeah, it's on HBO. Silly movie. It's apparently based on a book, which I didn't know. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And if you like big sharks, you'll definitely like this.
And who doesn't?
So yeah, The Meg.
Yeah, I think this is okay to spoil for that movie because it's going to get you to watch it. He literally like punches or kicks a shark in the face. Like no joke. And the shark is like huge. Like I don't even know how to it's like Godzilla size.
That's right, it's like the size of an aircraft carrier. It's a
and he physically assaults the shark. So if you want to see that.
Sounds good to me.
But I agree, it is enjoyable.
Yeah.
How about you, Scott?
So I've been so I'll say, to me, I'm thinking like comfort movies, and then I'm thinking about guilty pleasures kind of as two different things, because some of the comfort or the movies I just go back to and just watch, all the time are good movies. Like I love Glenn Ross. I can just sit there and watch that movie and be happy. I somehow go back to Big Trouble in Little China all the time. I don't know if you guys ever saw that. Anything with Kurt Russell, pretty much. Overboard included.
Overboard, yeah.
When it comes to guilty pleasures, I'll say first like the genre. I'm such a sucker for any sort of like slasher movie that's like, or just like, even if it's like it's not going to be a good movie. It's going to be formulaic. Some kids are going out to a campground. Like, so I won't even name movies. Like if that's in the description, I'll probably just watch it because it's, for whatever reason, I enjoy those types of movies. But I will throw one out there. I was looking up the Rotten Tomatoes score, because for it to be a guilty pleasure, it should be bad. It's at 50%. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and it's one you can watch with the kids as well. And it's 2008's Get Smart with Steve Carell. And yes, did you even know this movie existed?
I didn't. No,
I
love Steve Carell.
Yes, and it's got The Rock in it. It's got I can't think of her name. She was in The Devil Wears Prada. Very
Anne
Hathaway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I guess this thing bombed, and it's a 50%. It's a very fun movie, and maybe, and I don't know. Sometimes when you watch something with a kid or with your kids, you can kind of like blind yourself to the fact that this is a crappy movie because you're enjoying it with them.
Oh, is it the spy movie?
So Get Smart.
Okay, I
the
have
old
heard of it,
show, and I watched that show back in the day on Nick at Night. So like Get Smart with the shoe phone and with Agent 99.
The Cone of Silence.
The Cone of Silence. So they do a great job of like paying tribute to that. Steve Carell's the perfect person to play. Right. So I highly would see that. So for me, that's a guilty pleasure of one that we watched a couple of times, and I enjoyed the bejesus out of it, even though it's technically probably not a great movie, but it's funny. It's got action. It is what it is, right? It does, I think, what it sets out to do. It's not Citizen Kane, but there are explosions, there are laughs, and it's a tribute to the old TV show. So what about so Erin, what about you?
I have like two kind of I feel like I have a lot that I've watched over and over again as a kid, and I keep going back to those. When I think about like comfort movie, I think about Troop Beverly Hills, to be honest with you.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is a good
with Shelley Long. I mean, I think
was Bette Midler in that? Or is that a different one? I'm thinking of a different one. Sorry.
Maybe thinking of Beaches, or no,
never mind. I'm sorry.
True Beverly Hills. Well, she had red hair, curly hair at that.
Yeah.
So
I remember that movie and Shelley Duvall, but I just
Shelley Long.
Shelley Long, whatever. Okay, never mind. I'm gonna mute my mic. So tell us about your guilty.
So, okay, so Shelley Long was, from Cheers fame, and I'm sure she was in a lot of other things I can't think of right now. She was the troop leader in Beverly Hills, which, of course, you think about Girl Scout and camping with a bunch of Beverly Hills, brats, spoiled brats. I feel like there were so many great quotes from that movie, and I maybe have watched that 10,000 times. I'm no joke.
Wait, before you move on, I know why you liked it so much. I just looked at the IMDb.
Why?
Because Annette Funicello and Frankie Avalon are in that movie somewhere, according to IMDb.
I'm very easily. I'm so easy to read, but I loved that movie, and it's just like fun, and I just have fond memories of it when I was growing up, and the other one I could watch over and over again is the Austin Powers series. Like,
I love those movies.
Powers. When that came out, I saw that in the movie theater, the first one, 4 times.
Oh, wow.
So I probably spent out $250 on Austin Powers. I just, it was just like so weird and kooky, and like I love London in this, swinging 60s and that time period. Anyway, it was just like, again, so quotable too. But when that first came out and how like crazy and funny that was, I could watch the last one. What was it? Gold Member. I mean, you kind of lost me on that one.
Yeah.
But
the first two are
two.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
So, that was like Mike Myers had Wayne's World, which is unbelievable. Still holds up. I don't know the last time you watched that was, but it's still good. And then he had Austin Powers, but then it's like, I don't know, like moved back to Canada and stopped making movies or something. I think he did The Cat in the Hat, and then
so the movie that kind of halted his career, I guess, like made him not want to work as much, is The Love Guru.
The Guru.
Oh, that's right.
I guess and I've heard this, I don't know if it's true or not, but I guess he was so hurt by how much hate he got for that movie that he kind of semi-retired.
Yeah.
Oh wow! When was that?
When was that? It was in the late 2010s. Like I think it was like 2008, somewhere around then.
Yeah. He was on. I want to say he was on a podcast. It was like Mark Maron or one of those. I think it might have been Mark Maron. And I think he talked about that, and it was like, he's like a sensitive dude, whatever. Yeah. And I think he like moved out to Hawaii or something and just stayed there. I don't know, but you think about guys like Adam Sandler who just keep cranking out like movies and have this whole Happy Madison thing, which, by the way, okay, guilty pleasures, perfect.
Yeah.
Have you guys watched The Wrong Missy?
No.
Is that?
It's Netflix David Spade movie. It's by Happy Madison Productions, so it's like the Adam Sandler.
So it's one of those Adam Sandler Netflix movies.
It's been the #1 movie on Netflix for like a week or so.
I've heard about it. I haven't
heard of it.
Okay.
It's as Jacob said multiple times tonight. It's not a good movie, but guess what? I watched the entire movie in one sitting, other than to like get up and like make a sandwich. I mean, it's so dumb, but it's. You know those Happy Madison movies, what they are. Like, they're going to go for the easy laugh. They're going to go whatever. But the actress that plays Missy or whatever she's been in a couple of movies. I can't think of her name. Oh, Lauren Lapkus, I think, is unbelievable. She's just like goes all out 110%. She's like this crazy person. So it's pretty funny. I think it's like probably 40 on Rotten Tomatoes, but since we're talking about guilty pleasures, so I think we should probably think about wrapping up. I was going to ask, because you said something interesting, Erin, which was that you saw Which movie did you see 4 times in the theater? Was it
Austin Powers 1.
Austin Powers?
Mm-hmm.
So, do we all know what's the movie that you saw the most times in the theater because you had to rewatch it? And why don't we go around and say that, and then, and maybe you've only never seen a movie twice in the theater, but I'm sure you all have. So, was that the one you saw the most? You think, Erin, or can you think of another movie?
My second runner-up was Jurassic Park, 8th grade.
Oh, good call.
Yeah, 3 times.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a
Like
good choice.
a lot of people, most people don't see any value in going to see a movie a second time in theaters, and I actually think the complete opposite. Like if you love a movie, like you go watch it again, and you notice new things. You might like it more, you might like it less, but I think there's extreme value in that, especially if you review movies and stuff.
Right.
For us,
Yeah.
It's also fun to go with different people. Like sometimes I'll go see a movie, usually with like a Quentin Tarantino movie, I'll go by myself because I don't want to have to worry about whoever is with me, and then me and my buddy Steve will go or whatever. So
by the way, going to the movies by yourself is the best.
It is.
It is so therapeutic.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it at all.
100%.
Phase 3, I'm there. Phase 3.
Steve from my other podcast and I have talked about it because he has these things that he won't do because he's like, he doesn't wear sweatpants in public. He doesn't eat generic Pop-Tarts. He doesn't go see movies by himself. And I'm always like, I'm about to go see that movie in my sweatpants and go bring some generic Pop-Tarts. I don't care. But it's because again, you're not worrying about anything else but just you and the movie. Okay, so Keith, what about you? Any repeat viewings that you can think of?
I saw Avengers, the first one, 2012. I saw that one 4 times in the theater.
Dang!
I saw it 3 times the opening weekend.
Oh my gosh!
Damn.
Wow!
And then I saw it again about maybe 3 weeks later after that. So I loved it. That was so much fun.
That was a good movie going experience. I remember when that came too.
Yeah. I don't think
4 times.
I love that movie, obviously, but they've done so much. The Marvel Studios have done so much more since. It doesn't, for me, it doesn't hold up as well. But the theater experience at the time was the most fun I've had. It's the same thing going to the theater. That was one of the last times I went to a midnight show.
Well, they stopped doing midnight shows. Now they would show them at like 7 or 8 p.m. Which is
exactly.
Great, actually.
Yeah. So, I saw that one 4 times in theater. Man. I can't even think of anything other than that. I think I've never seen anything more than twice. But
yeah. Before we ask Jacob, I'm curious I will say I'm not a big Marvel guy. Like I saw the first one in the theater. I've seen a couple here and there, but like I haven't watched the sequels. I don't, for people that aren't really into the Marvel universe, are there standalone movies or are there movies that you would say like this was a really good one to go see? Because I'll never go watch all the movies.
I think we're both probably going to say the same thing. Captain America: The Winter Soldier is just fantastic. Like it's a spy thriller, and it's just like the hand-to-hand combat is the best in any comic book movie ever made. Maybe, as far as throughout the whole movie, yes, I would say that. Make that statement.
100%.
It is great, and you don't have to see the first Captain America to watch that necessarily. You kind of just got to know a little bit about the Marvel universe. Like if you've seen the first Avengers, you're good. Like
you got it.
Right. Okay, perfect. That's exactly what I was asking. All right.
And then I say another one would be Guardians of the Galaxy. If you haven't seen that,
I did see that one.
It almost is like separate until they make it a part of it.
Sure.
I think that's probably why I went to see that, because I was like, oh, good, I don't need to be like looped into the whole thing. These guys are from the universe, but nobody really knows who this Fox is or whatever. I'm sorry, Keith, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, that, and I would recommend both the Captain America sequels, Winter Soldier and Civil War. They're really good. Used some really good, like you said, spy thriller, good political thriller, and real the action. Of course, the action is there, but I mean the characters are the conflict that they're facing that they go through with each other. It's quite compelling. I would highly recommend both of those.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. That's just what I wanted to know. So, Jacob, what about you, man? Most rewatched movie in the theater?
Oh my goodness. I'm going to embarrass myself here, but I saw Star Wars: The Force Awakens 8 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
8 times, and I
We spent
actually
$1 million.
Which one was the best viewing? Was it like number 3 or number 5? Do you remember?
Honestly, I think it was viewing number 2 because I'll tell you what, we saw it at like 1 a.m. The night it came out, and then I went home. I couldn't sleep. I eventually fell asleep. I woke up at like 10 a.m. and went and watched it right away.
Oh my God!
Okay.
Wow.
Because look, you gotta. I don't know if you guys are Star Wars fans or not, but as a Star Wars fan, that moment of the movies coming back was just so amazing, and like I just couldn't believe we had another Star Wars movie in theaters. So, but like you said, Scott, I went and saw it with so many different people, right? Like I went with a big group the first night, but then my brother hadn't seen it, then my mom hasn't seen it, so I went with a bunch of different people to see it.
Yeah, it's like a different experience. Almost like if it's a great movie that you love, seeing it with other people is like an enjoyable experience because you're like, they're gonna get to see this part that is so cool, you know. So I'll say I can only think of 2 that I've seen 3 times in the theater. One was Kill Bill, Part 1.
Oh.
When that came out, it blew my mind. I saw the first one, I think by myself. Then I saw one with Steve, and then the 2 of us went back and saw it again. The other one is Titanic. I saw Titanic 3 times in the theater. I was such a I love that movie so much.
I love Titanic.
It's really good.
Did you wonder why you did an Instagram story of your 90s record or your whatever, and you got Celine Dion? Now I know why.
Guess
it was
what?
very accurate.
Right. I'm about to say the most 90s sentence of all time this just reminded me of. No joke. On my way from checking out of the Blockbuster by my house, I bought the Titanic CD, soundtrack.
Wow.
It was an impulse buy, and it was like $18, but I was just like, what am I going to do? Not buy this? Like and to be frank, it's a great soundtrack, but I could have probably just got the single of
yeah,
My Heart Will Go On.
Yeah.
But you absolutely bought it at Blockbuster, went home, took that CD case off, you know. But
how much of that soundtrack was flute, like extraneous flute?
Yeah.
I would imagine a lot.
I mean, to be honest, all I remember about that soundtrack is somewhat like the Braveheart soundtrack, which I love, which is also James Horner.
Yeah.
It has a lot of volume fluctuations in it, so if you try to go to sleep to it, it's like the flute and the little whatever, and all of a sudden it's like don't, this loud thing. All of a sudden you wake up, you're like, what's going on? But anyway, well, this has been a blast. We've kept you guys for well over an hour, and we really appreciate it, and hopefully we can do this again.
Thank you.
Absolutely, anytime. It's been fun, man. Look, with technology, it's so easy.
Yeah.
So easy. It only took us a half hour to get
Yeah, exactly.
What the viewer doesn't know is it took us 45 minutes to get this started. So even though it's been a little over an hour, it's been about an hour.
But yeah, we'd love to get you guys on Bartley and Barnes sometime. Like that would be awesome. And I do have a question for you guys, actually. Really quick. So I checked out your YouTube channel for Panic at the Costco, and I love the look and everything. So my question is, what is your guys' plans for this podcast? Like, are you going to continue it once the quarantine is over? That's my question.
We haven't really talked about that, have we?
It just keeps going like the quarantine.
Yeah, so I was telling
roll it out in phases.
Yeah,
I was telling Keith that the effects of it are going to be for a long time. So you guys can still continue it. Well,
here's my thoughts on it, and Erin, we haven't explicitly talked about this, I don't think, but she and I were already talking about doing a podcast prior to this about just nostalgia and 80s stuff and old whatever stuff we like. And when this all went down, it was like right as the quarantine was starting, I think I don't remember who got the idea, but we ended up talking, going, let's do this. So like the idea for having this podcast went from germination to fruition in like 2 days. It was like we should do a podcast about this. And then boom, we did it. We got the artwork, and within a couple of days we started doing this. My whole thought has been, if let's say we're all back to normal in a month from now, and the name kind of doesn't make sense and nobody really cares anymore. If nothing else, there's 15 and 20 episodes that are a document of what the hell was happening.
Basically, yeah.
2020.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And we can always wrap this up and do something else. I tend to think, like what Jacob said, is the ramifications of all this is not going to be done anytime soon. So quite frankly, as you guys know, as YouTubers, and you understand with podcasts, like a lot of podcasts don't make it past the 3-week mark or whatever it is, because it's pod fade, as they call it, or whatever. So I think we've already probably made it past more episodes than a lot of people. So I don't know. What do you think, Erin?
No, I think that it's funny because in the beginning, everything's changing so quickly. Like week to week to week to week, there's just new things happening, new news stories, something opening up or whatever. There's always a topic to discuss. So we haven't run out of those yet, and I don't think that we will. We still have a lot to talk about and that we want to talk about. And like Scott said, we started, brainstorming a completely different podcast, before this. And then we pivoted because it just really was born out of us both feeling like, oh my gosh, what the hell is going on? And this uncertainty and all of these different feelings that we both wanted to talk about immediately. And we're like, well, obviously other people want to talk about this. So we just try to cover, different topics and different, and our emotions behind it, and get, pretty real with it. And we have, I think, we have more to discuss, and that who knows, like what week by week, it just changes. So I feel like we'll just keep going as long as it feels right. And then, we may do the other podcast simultaneously, or we may just wait until this fades out more. But I have a feeling with reopening, things are going to change again. I mean, we don't know. But it's been really, we always say this on the podcast, therapeutic for both of us, for a lot of our guests that have been on, and just talking about it. And some episodes are lighter, like this one, than others, and that's okay, because that's the first 3 episodes, or 4, I don't know how many, are just us going like, how's everybody doing? And everybody's just like, oh no, man, this sucks.
I feel like everyone was in shock during that time.
You could fill an hour with just what the fuck, absolutely, over and over.
Well, I told Steve on the phone, I was like, dude, I'm not even joking. This is selfish for me because it lets me talk to other adults. Like, it's fun, and like whatever. If other people are getting stuff out of it, great. But hey, I'll pay the hosting site, and we'll do this just so I can have you guys. I mean, this is the silver lining that we talk about with all this. And I remember what you guys were talking a little bit about, just silver linings, which is I wouldn't get to talk to Keith Barnes, man. I mean, what are the odds I'd message Keith and be like, hey man, you want to get on a video call? He'd probably block me or something, but getting to have these kinds of conversations. So so we'll see where it goes.
That's a great point. No, I think there is a way for you guys to continue even just beyond several months from now, because I look at it as like you guys are kind of diving into different aspects of society, and just trying to see how they're dealing with this, but also it's kind of an analyzation of society in a way. And Panic at the Costco is kind of like a metaphor for how crazy the world is. So I think you guys can still find a way to continue that beyond this specific quarantine.
Well, thanks, man.
Thank you, guys.
I appreciate you bringing that up, and
100%.
I hope you're right. All right. Well, listen, I've had a blast, and we'll do this again soon. And everyone, if you're watching this, please, I don't know, do you guys have a website or somewhere to point people to?
So I would go to Apocaflix Movies on YouTube. Go to Apocaflix Movies on YouTube and subscribe. And look, Bartley and Barnes is kind of like a little hobby side project for us. But if you want to check out Bartley and Barnes, it is more of a variety show where we talk about sports and movies and TV. Apocaflix Movies is where we strictly talk about movies. So please check those both out.
Awesome. Well, we'll do, and I will be watching Bartley and Barnes. I enjoyed the episode I watched. And Thursday, every other Thursday,
Yes.
6 p.m. Central. Thank you guys again, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks,
Lots,
guys.
Scott.
All right.
Thank you for having us.
Bye, guys. All right.
Bye.
Have a great night.
I get nervous when she's near. Is it something in the atmosphere?
Speaksies.